Welcome, everyone, to the Legends of Sport podcast. I'm your host, as always, Andy Bernstein, and I'm really happy to bring this episode to all of you today with veteran NASCAR driver Kurt Busch. Kurt has been racing professionally for over 20 years. We talk about how he started racing in karts at tracks around his home in Las Vegas, which led him to competing in every kind of car throughout his career. I must say, I'm not the most educated person on NASCAR and car racing in general, although I have shot some throughout my career. So it was fun to learn about racing and Kurt's story through our research and speaking with him directly. Kurt and I discussed some of the common qualities between his sport and others, some of the athletes he admires, and the Mamba mentality he brings to his training and mindset in his sport. We also discussed the Black Lives Matter issues that were front and center with NASCAR last summer, his support of fellow driver Bubba Wallace, and NASCAR's decision to ban the Confederate flag. Also, Kurt's active support and participation with the Vet Ticks organization and why it's important to him. I hope you enjoy this episode with Kurt Busch, and as always, I'll see you on the backside. So welcome, Kurt Busch, to the Legends of Sport podcast. I got to tell you, man, I didn't grow up with NASCAR racing, but I'm a big fan of what you've been doing and the type of athletes that you guys are out there. And I just want to talk about where you guys started, where you started. Okay. You said you were 16 when you started. Is that right? And you were doing kart racing in Vegas, where you grew up, right? So what's that like as a kid getting in the kart for the first time and racing against, your buddies?
Well, thanks. I appreciate you showing the respect of the danger and, the tenacity of the difference of this sport versus any other sport. I mean, motorsports is dangerous. And, I started at 16 years old. I was watching my dad race my whole life, and he raced smart. He had a couple accidents here or there, but he always tried to bring the car home without a scratch on it. And that's how he taught me how to race. Yeah. And that first time when I jumped in, I had my hat on backwards and flip-flops on, and I was just jamming. I was going. And you don't think about it, and then when there is a wreck, which I did have a few early in my career, and we would go back and watch the videotape and watch the moves that I made wrong. And then there was this philosophy: don't put yourself in position to wreck. And you try to make wiser decisions out on track and not be putting yourself in those awkward spots. But you still got to win, right? You still got to go for the.
Yeah, absolutely. This is your 21st year or 22nd? 21st.
I think so. Yeah, it's a 21st full-time season out on the NASCAR circuit. So I've been out here for a while.
Wow. So let's talk about last season, because, obviously we're all in the pandemic. All of my sports shut down. I was working on March 10th, March 11th, everything was gone. I believe that NASCAR was like the first sport to basically come back, right, without fans. And I read a couple interviews that you did, but how difficult was that for you and the other drivers to not have fans? Or are you just not tuned into the fans when you're out there because you're so locked in? Or how was that for you?
I'll tell you, pre-race, it was eerie. Even driving into the racetrack, no motorhomes and people tailgating and partying, and nobody's waving their flag for their favorite driver. And you're like, is this the test session today? Is this just a practice? And then out on the grid before the race, they had a pre-taped national anthem, and it's quiet everywhere. You're like, oh my, this is super weird. And even after the race, the winner, he's sitting there doing the burnouts and celebrating, and it's like, wait a minute, the crowd's not even cheering. What happened? But when you're in the race racing, you don't notice the fans as much. Yeah. Night races, though, with people's cell phones and cameras, you get all the flash bulbs. Right. So, yeah, there's little things that we're missing. And I'll tell you, it's been a big adjustment period for our sport, for a lot of sport. And I'm glad, though, that we're slowly getting fans back to the racetrack. I think we had 30,000 at Talladega a few weeks ago. So, we're getting there. We're getting back to our big parties.
Yeah, I spent 53 days in the NBA bubble, and you've been to NBA games. You know what it's like sitting in an arena full of fans and the energy, and the players obviously feel that. But that was so bizarre to watch the Lakers win the championship literally in front of nobody.
Yeah.
It was just like the burnout thing you were talking about. It's crazy.
Yeah. 20 will always have that asterisk, right? Just of how awkward it felt with any sport.
Yeah. So Kirk, can you point to one track, one victory, one championship? I mean, you have raced, I got down here, you have 775 starts in 3 divisions. You've basically raced in every type of, car possible out there, right? What was the sweetest one for you? Sweetest win?
I mean, it's hard to pick a sweet one. You don't want to rank one versus another.
Mm-hmm.
But there's top 5 moments in my career. And anytime you get that first win at the top level, I won Bristol in like my 50th start on the circuit. And it's like, I made it. I can do this. I'm not going to get let go at season end, because at the beginning of the 2000s, it was cutthroat on keeping your job. You had to perform, you had to win. Especially as a rookie with no sponsors. I got that win, a championship in 2004 at Miami. I've won the Daytona 500, 2017.
Yeah.
I've won on short tracks, road courses, super speedways. So I've won on all the different style tracks. And then the one that got away still, but I love telling the story about it, is Darlington. It's the closest finish in NASCAR history. And I'm the second place guy.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I just won second place. Well, they always say you don't win second place, you lose first place, right? But one of my photos of LeBron, got the second place thing. And yes, I was happy, but,
Well, I learned from Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. So
I love that you're quoting Ricky Bobby. My kids absolutely love that movie. And that introduced NASCAR to like this whole generation of kids. Unbelievable. Yeah. I assume it was somewhat realistic.
I mean, it has its moments of real, and then just the self-deprecating humor of making fun of NASCAR within it. That was great. I mean, Days of Thunder helped project our sport in the early 90s, Talladega Nights, mid 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's 2021. It's time for another movie.
That's right. You got to call Will, have him make like a sequel or something, your brother Kyle races as well. And I always sort of try to go back to my NBA roots, and I'm thinking of like the Curry brothers, and the Gasol brothers. And when I watch those guys play, they are going at it. I mean, they are not holding back. They might be going a little harder against their brother. I just saw it. Maybe you saw it last week when Steph and Seth Curry went at it in a nationally televised game. Does it have a little juice when you got your brother out there, or now you guys are teammates, I guess, right?
We're not teammates, but no, it's the genuine sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
Early in my career, or in his, when he got to the cup level, I had 5 years of experience. So it was like, he's just a rookie. He's just my pain in the butt little brother, right? And then he got settled in, and around 2008, 2010, in that range, he caught it. Like everything was clicking for him. He's now the winningest driver of all the series. So he has 100 truck wins, 50 or in Xfinity, and he's got 50 in the Cup. I mean, he's got more wins in NASCAR than Richard Petty.
No kidding.
And so I think I can take a little bit of credit on saying that I taught him a thing or two.
Well, maybe it was a little motivating for him to have his older brother to chase, a little bit. Yeah. Yep,
for sure. No, early in our career, we were just bumping, man. And then we wrecked each other at an all-star race for $1 million. and grandma goes, "Hey, can I borrow some money?" And we're like, "Oh, man, when grandma's digging on you."
That's classic. That's so funny. So is your son racing? I read somewhere that he started. How old is he now?
It's Kyle, has son Brexton. So my nephew.
That's your nephew. Okay, gotcha. So
and he'll be 6 next month. And he's been racing at 2 different tracks. He runs really good at one of them. Yeah. And the other not so good yet. Yeah. But hey, the 6-year-old, and he's out there racing against 9-year-olds. And so he's got, the competition already is tough, but that'll make it better.
I guess, the lineage has to just keep going, right? As the sport keeps, just blowing out. So, to see you guys, the Busch family, continue, maybe he's, the next generation, who knows, right?
Yeah, no, he had a little mishap with his go-kart and wrecked it. And he's like, he just takes the helmet off, and he was more upset about the wreck and didn't even care that he might have been hurt. And it's like, all right, that's a good sign. It's a good sign. He's ready to get back in there and go again.
Yeah. Well, Kurt, one thing that race car drivers that I've found in my career, they get short shrifted on is training, is really like, they're just sitting in the car going around a track. But that is like the furthest from the truth, obviously. What is your training regimen like? Like, how do you, and you have the craziest schedule of basically a race in a different city every week, right? So that's grueling. But what is your training schedule like to get ready for the season and as the season is going on?
Yeah, I love doing ride and drives with people at Richard Petty Racing Experience or a road course racing school. And after 10 laps, they get out of the car and they're sweating, and then they're just like, they were white knuckled, and they're like, I don't know how you guys do this for 500 laps. It's like, well, we're kind of used to it. We're not so intensed up right now. But yes, cardio is the biggest thing for a NASCAR driver, IndyCar, any kind of motorsports person is heavy into cardio. So I have a Peloton bike, jump on there with buddies and go. Elliptical machine, treadmill, a rower. I try to keep a good variety of different cardio. And then in the summer, I'll jump out on the lake that we live on and just go kayak and go explore different places and just set my watch for a timeline. And any time that I do my exercises for cardio, I'm not like blitzing to run as fast as I can. I'll jump on there and go for a 5-mile run and just get in the mindset of getting through the run and timing it for the different segments of the race. So mentally, as I'm exercising, I'm like, all right, this is halfway through the race. This is 3/4 of the race. And then I'll push hard at the end to try to simulate mentally along with my cardio.
Wow. Yeah. I would think that's just got to be, sitting in a car, it must be hotter than hell in there. I can imagine you're locked in, right? But you have to be so absolutely focused on what you're doing. 100% of the time is split-second decision, right? So
nutrition's a big part of it. Making sure you eat the right foods to have the energy released through your body on the timeline of when the food is going to give it to you. Hydration. Water. And a secret weapon that I have that I found late in my career, Pedialyte.
There you go. Yeah. Well, you know what? I've heard other athletes talk about that. Yes, that's right. Because you got the electrolytes, it rebuilds all that for you, right? And
yes, it's most important after the race. Then a Monster Energy doesn't hurt as well. Chug one of those and get you the caffeine before a race.
I'm sure. I was watching your interview with Carlos Watson, which was great, by the way. And I'm not sure if you even saw the end of it after you signed off, but he equated your passion for what you do in your sport to what Kobe did. And, I was very close with Kobe. We did a book together. I documented his whole career. And he said that your passion reminded him of Kobe, which I thought was pretty amazing. To bring the Mamba into the conversation. Did you have any interactions, or did Kobe, was he have any influence to you as an athlete or a person in your life?
Well, I'm humbled by those comments and appreciative. I saw Kobe play here in Charlotte, North Carolina. He came in to play as a Laker against the Hornets, and he had 2 points on the board, and it was 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And the Hornets were up by 20. And the guy that I had tickets with, we're not quite courtside. We're about 2 rows up. He elbows me and he goes, watch, 6 minutes after this timeout, Kobe's going to come in and take over the game. And I went, okay. Kobe finished with 24 points. The Lakers won, and he did it all in 6 minutes. And I was just in awe.
Yeah.
Like he knew when go button time needed to be pressed. I've met Tiger Woods. He had a different aura about him. Met Dan Marino down at a Dolphins game, not when he played, but in his suite for an Orange Bowl one year. And he had that same aura about him, of that champion fire, that champion desire. And I can't wait to bump into Michael Jordan, who's now part of the team owner here in NASCAR with Denny Hamlin.
That's right. That's right. I read that recently. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know MJ was into racing, quite frankly, but
Yeah, he's got a racing bug. He was on bikes way back. He loved the super bikes.
I didn't know.
But being a North Carolina boy, you got to have NASCAR in you.
Yeah, right. But Kurt, do you see any of the Mamba mentality in yourself? Because to do what you've been doing for so long. I mean, Kobe played 20 years. You're now 21 years into what you do. There has to be something almost otherworldly that is driving you. That continues, that lights that fire like he had. You see anything like that?
I attribute it a lot to my father, who helped create a good work ethic in me.
Mm-hmm.
And to wake up early and to stay late and to give that effort towards the race car and to understand the race car and to work on it. Mm-hmm. And when you work on it, you learn things about it, and then you respect it more when you drive it. Watching videotape, adjusting to all the new data that we have now, not being complacent. You can never get complacent. As soon as you're complacent, you're getting put a lap down, no pun intended. It's adapting to the culture that's around you. And with the race car, I think I've done a good job. In the PR world, I struggled early in my career, just with my attitude and just telling everybody that it's my way and not their way, and thought the world revolved around me a lot in the early part of my career. Second half, understanding more about life, maturing, getting a little older, getting married to Ashley, my wonderful wife, you find more and more reasons to focus in and to be the best that you can be each and every day. And now I'm to the point in my career where literally yesterday, a young racer called me and said, "Hey, can I meet you for lunch? I'm struggling." And my wife's like, "You got to start a business of being a mentor and a coach to these guys." And I'm like, "It's not that. I just want to go help the kid because I want to do it out of the kindness of my heart."
Yeah, being of service. Well, everything you're describing about yourself, I saw develop and sort of evolve with Kobe. A young 18-year-old brash rookie who nobody could tell him no. He was itching to get out of the gate. The coach wouldn't play him, in his rookie year and all that stuff. And then he starts winning championships, then starts becoming the veteran on the team, and then of course the mentor. And it becomes a little bit less about him, what it did, and more about the team and his legacy and all that. And I've read and heard you talk about that now, later on in your career, you are crediting your team more, that it's more, a group effort. And how does your team play into your success? And can you credit them?
It's a matter of finding the strengths and the weaknesses, and people looking in the mirror and admitting it to themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've tried to help coach to people is, if you see something and you're sensing it, it's a sixth sense, then you have to react to it. Mm-hmm. There's things that are black and white that are in a textbook or in a rule book, or this is just the way, right? Like the Mandalorian says, this is the way, right? But then there's that sixth sense of finding key things that will add to victory. And, everybody's got the same cake that we're trying to raise, and you just got to bake it the right way. And that's how you get ahead of the competition. Mm-hmm. And so, there's little analogies that I like to teach people. And then at the end of the day, it's just showing up each and every day. Like, I don't really have to be here at the race shop on a day like today because our meetings were done yesterday, but you stop back by and it gives those guys that motivation of, he's got it, man. He's got it right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When they see the veteran guy in, like with Kobe, they saw him in the gym. Young guys would come in, the Mamba would already been in the gym for an hour and a half, so it makes an impact for sure. Right. 100%.
Yep, it does. It does.
Yeah. So last summer I was in the bubble. So much came down with George Floyd, and when I was there was Jacob Blake killing, and, the NBA shut down in the bubble, the WNBA shut down for a couple of days. Your sport was involved in Bubba Wallace's, I guess, his drive to get rid of the Confederate flag, right? Let's just get rid of it. We don't need it. It was an amazing moment in your sport, right? I mean, that moment when he, I saw that selfie he took with all of you guys, and then, it was such a solidarity moment, right? I mean, I grew up in New York. The Confederate flag, honestly, I didn't really think much of it, right? How did you play? How did you feel about the whole thing, and what's your view on how NASCAR now can move forward with social justice issues?
Yeah, I grew up in Las Vegas, and I would call Vegas a pretty diverse melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people came from the Midwest early on. There's the Hispanic community, the Black community, Asians, the tourism that's there. I saw all kinds of people growing up, and I never saw any difference in anybody. And the Confederate flag to me was on top of the General Lee, the car, right? I didn't know what it meant.
Right.
I just thought it was a decorative flag on the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got to the South, you see the people flying the flags and start to do some research and see things. You're like, okay, I see what's going on, but we got to move forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought last year, the move that NASCAR made was the right timing. And the fans have respected it. And I really believe everybody's embraced it. And then with Bubba, the issue that happened at track, we don't know the full story about what happened in the garage area. We were just told that one of our brothers was threatened.
Mm.
And that's why you saw the drivers all stand there.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't matter if it was a female, a white male, didn't matter. Somebody was threatened in our fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we were there for Bubba.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm sure he felt it. I mean, you could tell in the interviews I've seen with him. I want to talk a little bit about your charitable efforts. This foundation that you work with, Vet Ticks. Can you talk about that and why you were, gravitated towards that, what it means to you, and kind of what it's all about?
Yeah, for me, I partnered with vetticks.org.
Mm-hmm.
It's tickets to our military for any sporting event. And I donated 100 to every NASCAR race.
Wow.
Their system, some of it's a lottery choice. Some of it's where people can use their coins that they've accumulated to get these tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I tell you, the first couple trips I made to Walter Reed Medical Center in Washington, D.C. and to Bethesda, and to go into the rooms to see the men and women who had just come back from combat and had their leg blown off, or they had shrapnel all down their right or left side. Their life has changed forever.
Mm-hmm.
And as a racer or as an athlete, anybody, it could be a banker, a lawyer. If you have a bad day, just go to a military hospital and you're going to see what a bad day is.
Mm-hmm.
And so they gave me motivation from within. I raced in the Indy 500 a few years ago, Memorial Day weekend, and I worked out like full-on boot camp, like I was military style, all leading up to that. Mm-hmm. And it was from the motivation of seeing them at the hospitals. And so wanted to give back to the community. The times that I've been there, they're like, why are you here? You here just for a photo op? Mm-hmm. And I said, no, I'm here to give you tickets. When you get out of this rehab, you're coming to a NASCAR race with me.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. Do you get to do a meet and greet with them, or is it just a little crazy, on race day? Do you get to mingle?
Yeah, pre-COVID, we get them down into the garage area.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's times where I give them just the grandstand passes, and they got the sign up saying, thanks, Kurt, thanks, Vet Ticks. And I'm like, yeah, man, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's really a great cause, and supporting our veterans. I work a lot with USA Basketball, and they're very involved with the veteran community out, and it's actually in Las Vegas because there's a whole bunch of bases out there, and Coach K, who was the longtime coach of the U.S. team, would bring in some veterans. He'd bring in some generals to talk to these NBA players, who are on the U.S. team. And you could just see these guys were like riveted because they had never really been around that culture before, but
yep.
What like General Dempsey would be talking about was like right up their alley, so important stuff, man.
We talked about the Mamba, and like Tiger Woods and other auras about people. And when you meet a 4-star general or you meet a high ranking military individual for the United States, you feel that same thing from that individual.
Yeah, for sure. So Kurt, what's next for you, man? I mean, you're going to keep racing until when? I mean, have you put a date on it, or it's just going to be when, it's not fueling you anymore? How's it going to work?
I need to call Tom Brady and make sure that I'm doing all the right things. He just keeps going.
Yeah.
I have great health. I have a great wife and life, and I'm having fun racing cars. We're winning. This year it's a good battle right now. A lot of winners on our circuit, and the playoffs are going to be tough this year. So we got to kind of get our season kicked into gear here. And then my contract's up at the end of this year. But the teams are starting to talk to me about what I would like to do, and we'll see how it all balances out. Fox Sports even asked me to do some commentating for one of the NASCAR programs. So that's out there.
Yeah.
Who knows? Full-time, part-time, don't know. And then there's a few races around the world, like the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Yeah.
And then there's a race in Australia called the Bathurst 1000 that I want to go and do. So we'll see. We'll see what pops up.
Have you done the 24 hours race before?
I've done it twice in Daytona, but I haven't done Le Mans.
Well, so educate me on that, dude. How does that work? I mean, are you literally in the car for 24 hours? How does it work?
So you have one car, and then it's split between 3 drivers.
Okay.
And so when you drive, you're usually in there for 2, maybe 3 hours.
Yeah.
Just depends on when a yellow caution comes out or when you need fuel. And then the next guy jumps in. While that guy's getting in, you go take a nap. And literally somebody will knock on your motorhome door at 2 a.m. Hey, you got to be on pit road in a half hour in case there's a yellow, you got to jump in.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
That's crazy.
Then like the morning session is insane when the sun's coming up.
Yeah.
You're finding the energy of the next day and the sun coming up. And you're like, oh man, we still got 8 hours to go.
Oh, that's unbelievable. And what was it like competing at Indianapolis in open wheel and all that? I mean, how much experience did you have racing that way before that?
That was that moment, like when we started this conversation of being crazy and motorsports is dangerous. I had that moment on the grid of the Indy 500. I mean, 250,000 people, the pageantry of the beginning of the race. I mean, I was choked up and I had to kind of focus in. I had to put the blinders on. I go, you know what? You've done this before. You've raced cars at this track for 15 years. The speed, yes, 230 is a heck of a lot different than 195 like the NASCAR does there.
Yeah.
But I trusted myself. I did my homework. I had a great team with Andretti Autosport, and I started the race 12th, and I finished 6th in my first ever and only open wheel race at the Indy 500. And I think I overachieved. I mean, I was trying to pass Juan Pablo Montoya on the outside of turn 1 with like 5 laps to go.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You don't pass Juan Pablo Montoya on the outside of turn 1.
I got to go back to Kobe on that, man, because I remember a young Kobe, his first All-Star game, and Karl Malone was asking for a pass, and he waved off Karl, went in and dunked. So that's like goes down in NBA history because he had the you know what to call off a Hall of Famer.
Yep. Yeah.
One last question, Kurt. What sports do you love besides your own, of course? But what do you watch? What do you like?
Man, I love live sporting events. It's a shame right now with COVID, but we'll get everybody back. My favorite is baseball. I grew up in Las Vegas, and I had WGN TV, and my family was from Chicago. So I love the Chicago Cubs. Right. I love them. And I'll tell you how I became a fan is in middle school, both my parents worked. And I'd come home from school and I'd turn on the TV. It was soap opera, Cubs, soap opera. I'm like, wow, these Cubs are on TV every day. They must be good.
That's funny because when my younger brother was growing up, that's when the Atlanta Braves got the Superstation, so for some reason he became like an Atlanta Braves fan growing up in Brooklyn because they were, like you said, they were on all the time, so he thought that's the only team that's out there. So I might as well root for them.
Exactly. That's how it happened. And then an incredible, 2016, I actually got to go to one of the World Series games. And I felt fulfilled of all the years of misery.
Yeah.
And we won the title. I was like, this is why I chose this team right here.
Yeah. I grew up in New York, like I said, and I was a Mets fan. And, when I was 11 years old, they won the World Series, which was great. But then I went to school in Massachusetts, became a Red Sox fan. Never thought I'd live to see them win, the World Series, but of course they did. And then I started.
Baseball is my favorite. Football, basketball, hockey with the Golden Knights now in Vegas.
Yeah.
I got to see a Chelsea soccer game a few years back. That was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
I'm into all sports.
Yeah, I got a lot of hockey in my blood. So maybe one day we'll meet up at a hockey game, because I tell people I'm known for my basketball photography and archive, but I really love hockey the most.
You got to pull up a video of me on skates practicing with the Golden Knights. It's not good.
Oh, dude.
It's not good.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my researcher to look into that, because we're gonna put that in this video. Kurt, so great catching up and meeting you. I mean, I hope that we can, I don't know, show up at an NBA game together, or I could go to a NASCAR race at some point when you're out here. But, I really enjoyed the fact that we could have this conversation. You're a true legend of sport, man, and keep it going. Thanks for educating me a little bit, through the research, but by talking to you directly. And I wish you all the best, man. Good luck. And keep what you do. Keep doing what you're doing with the Vet Ticks, because that is a great organization. So I applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great to chat with you and talk some sport. And there's a video too you got to find on Instagram, on my Insta, of me doing batting practice. Now that's a good video if you're going to do the hockey video. All right.
You got some skill there? You handle a curveball or what?
I look baller in the batting cage, but of course they're just teeing it right down the pipe.
I love it. That's awesome. That's so great. Well, listen, man, good luck the rest of the season. And I hope, we can see each other some way down the road, but thanks for taking the time today, man.
You got it, my friend. Thank you.
Well, folks, I hope you all enjoyed this episode with Kurt Busch. He's a true legend of sport and still competing at the highest level of his sport. Thanks also, as always, to my producer and researcher, Veronica Ahn. And a big thanks to Aaron Marion for his help booking Kurt today so we could bring this interview to all of you. Thanks, everyone, for continuing to download and subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on your favorite platforms, including Apple and Spotify. And keep following us, as always, on social media. Our Instagram, @Legends of Sport. Our Twitter, @Legends_of Sport. Our blog is legendsofsport.blog. And our TikTok and YouTube channels are Legends of Sport. You can find my photography on Instagram @ADBPhotoInc. So thanks again, everyone. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another great guest and episode. Keep checking our social media for the announcement. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and keep wearing your mask. Take care, everyone.